Now, Rob, we're ready to go into the examination process, and the reason why the exam is so powerful is because we're really able to identify the loss of function. And, you know, the best analogy I can give for people to link the concept of structure equals function, because if we have good structure, we're going to have good function. If we have a broken down structure, we're probably going to have bad function. And the most simple analogy I give to patients is the concept of a bridge. If we've got a good, stable bridge that disperses the load of vehicles transporting on it, it holds up. But over time, if that bridge begins to develop weak links and begins to weaken, the whole structure is going to collapse eventually. And as a bridge inspector, I want to catch that before it collapses. Now, unfortunately, you haven't done a very good job of protecting your weak links before they collapse, because they're now collapsing.
Yeah.
So this examination process is going to identify those, and we're going to start with a pretty simple postural analysis.
Okay.
This is the ability to kind of see our structure from outside in before we even have to take an x-ray. And as we look at the posture, we want to see the head level to the ground, the shoulders level, and the hips level. And then from the side, I want to see the ear in line with the shoulder. I don't want the head out here or way back here. And then that should be in line with the pelvis. If those are balanced, that typically gives us a pretty strong, stable structure.
Okay.
So go ahead and stand here for me. Put your feet about shoulder width apart, arms right down to the side. And I'm going to start by looking at a few things, and then I'll step away and show you what I'm looking at. So let me just briefly look at a few things here and make sure we identify. Now, a couple things that really jump out to me. And there are things that are worse in a posture than others.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to come behind you, and as you look into the mirror, I want you to identify, if I put my fingertips right here, look at which thumb is higher than the other. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
We've got a high shoulder on this side.
Yeah.
If I look at the skull's pretty level to the ground, but the shoulders are crooked. If I come down to the hips, and I put my hands here, and I want you to kind of identify, because this is hard to see in a mirror, but if I hold here and I step away, and I show you that, which hip's higher? Can you see that?
This one.
Yeah, we're definitely higher on the hip here, which is the same problem on the high shoulder, and that's a bigger problem than if they were on opposite sides. So we've got crooked hips, we've got crooked shoulders, we're all of a sudden starting to collapse to one side. When I look at you this way, you have a kind of a compensating pattern where the head's trying to come back the other direction. And if you look in the mirror where my finger is, and we line that up at the center of the skull, can you see which way the head's going?
Yeah, right.
It's collapsing to the right, kind of compensating for the whole shift in the posture.
Okay.
Does that look like a pretty stable, strong structure?
No.
Now when I look at you from the side, I'm going to come around here and I'm looking, does the center of the skull line up with the center of the shoulder? Now here's the points, let me show you. There's a gap, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
We call that a forward head posture. That puts a tremendous amount of stress on the muscles that connect to the skull, down into the shoulders. When I look at the center of your shoulder and measure that to the center of your hips, and I bring that up, look, it matched your head. And unfortunately, that's a pretty common male pattern where the head comes forward, the butt shifts to try to balance you, but you're now going back to the fetal curve. Remember when you're born, you're a fetus in a C-shaped position, you're not upright, you don't have the strength. So if you're reverting back to a fetal curve, is that strong or weak?
It's weak.
It's weaker. And we're now getting a weakened structure that can't support the stress loads that you keep applying to it day after day, and it's now going to that degenerative process.
Okay.
Okay? Now come over here for me and let's have a seat right on the table.